Your Excellency, Minister Singh, Mrs. Singh, Mrs. Lord Mayor of Frankfurt, Road, Mr. Consul General, Your Excellency, dear guests from India, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the premises of Peace Research Institute Frankfurt. Today is a unique day in the 30 years history of the Peace Research Institute Frankfurt. We will be honored with an object that is not only a wonderful piece of art, as you will see, but which incorporates an enormous symbolic and political meaning. We are overjoyed that it finds its home in Frankfurt, here at the Peace Research Institute. And we are thankful that our landlord, Mr. Schnapp, has gladly agreed to put it in place here. The Indian Union, by choosing Gandhi's sculpture as the adequate gift to the city of Frankfurt on the occasion of the book fair, has documented its will to continue in Gandhi's tradition, even as India is rising to world power status. And the Indian government honors the openness and tolerance so characteristic for Frankfurt by having decided that this is the appropriate present to the city. For us, the peace researchers, quite apart from being an immense honor, it is an occasion to pause and to reflect what Mahatma Gandhi means to us and to our work. Discussing Gandhi's political philosophy and strategy, we hear often two counter-arguments. The first one is that the non-violent strategy is naive and idealistic. The second, that it might have had its time in the India of the past, but is not adapted to today's reality. To start with the first argument, is it not rather naive to overlook that Gandhi was tremendously successful? The liberation of one of the two most populous countries in the world, with a minimum of fatalities, stands out as one of the greatest achievements in history. In our time, only the tectonic change of the end of the East-West conflict is comparable. And we should remember that this change as well came along in a non-violent way and was precipitated by a Soviet leadership that renounced force to preserve Soviet power and by popular movements that did not use violent means at all. Gandhi was all but naive. He was a coolly calculating strategist who knew quite well the powers he was fighting against. He was also aware that there might be enemies whom he would not reach by the strategy and tactics he had chosen, because they had lost their human faith and their moral conscience. And the human faith, and at least residual conscience, at the opposite side were the conditions on which his strategy could work. His comments on Nazi Germany show his awareness where the limits of non-violent actions might lie. He admitted, so reluctantly, to the right and necessity of self-defense against a merciless enemy. So he was neither naive nor overly idealistic. Idealistic he was only in the sense that he did not divide politics from ethics, but did his best to bring the two together. But do we not see time and again that the sharp division between the two is hampering rather than fostering political success? And that all too obvious immorality in politics is hurting the politician who acts in unethical ways, at least when it comes to the ballot. Was Gandhi's melting of politics and morale not betraying a healthier realism on how the human mind ticks rather than an unworldly idealism? This brings me to the second argument, that Gandhism is a matter of the past. In my view, nothing could be farther from the truth. Many of the 249 conflicts of today, of which in 24 the parties use violence regularly, and occasionally in another 74, could be led to a solution would at least one side decide to use Gandhi's approach. The most prominent and virulent one, with the largest global repercussions, is a Middle East conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. We can conduct a thought experiment. What could have happened had the Palestinians, after the first Intifada and the stagnation of the Oslo peace process, turned to a sustained, non-violent campaign in the Gandhian tradition? It appears to me, given the nature of Israeli society, highly probable that today a viable Palestinian state would exist. And we could screen through all the conflicts, one by one, to discover that in a majority, the Gandhian strategy holds a major promise for the aggrieved party. This is because Gandhi had discovered a deep and lasting truth about violence and force, which escapes many political leaders. Force is no instrument of social technology which you apply to an object in order to change it along your desires and objectives. Today, many great powers appear to believe in force, not as a last resort, but as a convenient means to solve a great variety of problems. This is a fatal error. To the contrary, force is an incalculable animal that is bound to engender unexpected and undesired side effects, consequences that fall back on the one who used force in the first place. This is because force gives inevitably birth to resistance and poisons those who use it as well. We are witnessing a related example today in Iraq. The self-poisoning is visible in the acts of torture, murder and rape, which the occupying powers commit to the population they are supposed to protect against the wishes of the leadership. The counter-intentional consequences have been clearly stated in the recent US intelligence report, which admits that terrorism has been growing, not diminishing, because of the Iraq war. Gandhi had an acute sense of the ambivalence of political means and ends. This shows most prominently in his thinking about force. It is also visible in the way he watched, analyzed, and changed his own strategy as he went along. Even the sharp analyst, he understood well when a campaign overshot, when the feelings he aroused risked to go overboard, when the ditches became too deep, when what he was demanding from his followers was overtaxing their souls, and then he changed direction. In this sense, the present research efforts of Peace Research Institute Frankfurt are in a sense Gandhian. We investigate the ambivalence of the so-called democratic peace. We find that this notion has developed now into a dangerous ideology which makes Western democracies even more self-confident and sometimes arrogant than they already were. We look for the counter-intentional consequences which violent and non-violent pressures on others may engender, which are taken with a view to democratize in a Western style, without due regard to the cultural, mental and institutional conditions on the ground. And without abandoning our commitment to democracy and liberal values, we try to develop praxeologies that are more informed by caution, humility and respect for the other side. My own work on India was meant to understand the rising and success of this fascinating country in its own right, to take the inside perspective rather than a superficial Western standard which measures everything against the model of Switzerland. And I came to the conclusion that Indian ascendancy is a big chance, not just for India herself, but also to the rest of the world. The Gandhian aspect of our work will be supported and enhanced by the visible presence of that great man's sculpture from this day on. We all know that this historical giant is towering over each of us. To look into his face day by day when we enter our workplace will be a lasting incentive for us to do better, to remain faithful to principle, and to keep going when times are frustrating and depressing. We are thus aware that this day entrusts us with a double stewardship. We are becoming the stewards of this splendid gift of the Indian Union to our home city of Frankfurt. And we will be the stewards of Gandhian ideas when we study conflict and peace in today's world. Your Excellency, we are proud and humble at once that this icon of Indian art, with its enormous meaning, is finding its place with us. Mrs. Lord Mayor, we are ever grateful that the city has graciously suggested that Germany's largest Peace Research Institute is the appropriate site in Frankfurt to host this memorial for Mahatma Gandhi. May I now invite His Excellency and Mrs. Lord Mayor to reveal the sculpture of the Peace Research Institute Frankfurt. We will be honored with an object that is not only a wonderful piece of art, as you will see, but which incorporates an enormous symbol. Mr. Schnapp has gladly agreed to put it in place here. The Indian Union, by choosing Gandhi's sculpture as the adequate gift to the city of Frankfurt, on the occasion, Your Excellency, Minister Singh, Mrs. Singh, Mrs. Lord Mayor of Frankfurt, vote. Mr. Consul General, Your Excellency, dear guest, symbolic and political meaning. We are overjoyed that it finds its home in Frankfurt, here at the Peace Research Institute. And we are thankful that our landlords from India, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the premises of Peace Research Institute Frankfurt. Today is a unique day in the 30 years history